St. Michael's by the Sea stands firm on the golden coastline of Southern California as a beacon of God's truth and love. For over a century, the light of Christ that illumines this beacon has steered travelers clear of spiritual danger, provided a place of rest and refreshment for weary pilgrims, and offered to a hungry and hurting world a place to call home. In the 1880s, a former sailor named John Fraser dug a well along the southern coast of California. The fresh water he discovered was of a similar composition to that of the most renowned spas in the world. The town that emerged around this special water drew its name after one such spa in the Bohemian town of Carlsbad. After a decade of rapid development and growth, the little town suffered from economic depression and drought. One of the few positive additions to Carlsbad during the 1890s was the establishment of St. Michael's Episcopal Church. Served by the Reverend William Jacobs, a young missionary priest from Ireland, the little chapel by the sea was consecrated in 1894. The chapel sat on a bluff overlooking the mighty Pacific for the next 65 years, serving the spiritual needs of this growing community.
I remember that it was a nice location, trees in the yard, and had a picket fence around, and the entrance was not where it is in this building now. The entrance was right here where you see the blank spot on, that was the entrance, and there was a window at this end at that time.
I can remember the cute little church, and at that time I was not familiar with the Episcopal service, and but I remember it very clearly, and Father Lockerbie was the priest in charge at that time, and I remember how cute it was, and the little organ playing away, and the small congregation doing their worshiping. It was I remember that very well.
There were two buildings there that were Sunday school rooms that were taken from prefabs from Camp Pendleton, I believe, and they were there until the move.
Well, I also was impressed by the little building, the nice little building, and the location, and how nice the people were. So, and that's what my wife had told me about, those nice people in that church.
Oh, Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve Mass at St. Michael's was so special because first of all, because I was the only child allowed to come. I was older and the others were too much younger, so they didn't get to come to it. And this beautiful chapel was decorated with pine boughs arched over the windows and Christmas lilies and poinsettias in window boxes and banked lilies and poinsettias and arched evergreens over the altar arches and candles. And you would come at 10:30 and have half an hour of singing Christmas carols together. And then at 11 o'clock, Mass began, right? And this must have been when I was like around 5. And it was just so magic because we had just the lights in here. It was pitch black outside. We had no street lamps in that location. And the service began at 11. Was wonderful with all of these beautiful decorations, and at 5 minutes of midnight the service ended with everybody holding a candle, the lights extinguished, and we knelt holding candles and sang all the verses of Silent Night to end the service. And then they opened the doors and you could see stars outside, and it was the first minute of Christmas.
Well, the chapel looked just about the same, and I think the looks of it was what attracted us to it. And my husband was very active in it, as was I, and the kids all went to Sunday school there. And it was very nice and small.
Over the years, St. Michael's and the village of Carlsbad continued to grow. In the mid-1950s, the generosity of a single person would change the course of the parish for generations to come. Mrs. Hugh McGee, a Carlsbad resident and St. Michael's parishioner, graciously donated a sizable piece of property to the congregation. Under the leadership of the Reverend John Lockerbie, the vision for a new campus home began to emerge. Ours is the vitally important first step, to be followed by those of later generations. With God and in His grace, we shall take this step boldly, in the humility of knowing that our efforts are noted before the throne of God. Faithfully in Christ Jesus, the Reverend John B. Lockerbie. To you, as parents of an Army and Navy cadet, the large number of Episcopal cadets worshiping with us has been one of the major factors in our decision to build. We simply can no longer pack everyone in the building. Whether or not you can help us with money, we ask that you remember our building project in your prayers. Sincerely yours, Robert A. Kolb, Building Chairman. The renowned Palm Springs architect and one of the founders of desert modernism, Albert Frey, was enlisted to design the new sanctuary. We were asked to create an economical design, permanent in materials, and deeply religious in feeling. The design elements are created to express the traditional and liturgical requirements of the church and the character of the historical coastland. Albert Frey and Robson Chambers. Ground was broken, construction began, and the little chapel was carefully processed down the old coast highway to its new home. The new church was dedicated in 1959.
My first memory it was coming back here in July of 1958, and they had started building up the walls, and they were concrete block walls. There was steel rods sticking up, and the workmen would take a concrete block and put it over the steel rods, the reinforcing rods. And I watched a little of that being built, and I remember that rod sticking up through the walls.
Well, as a young boy, I remember coming from church when the chapel was on, what street is that? Lincoln. The chapel was there, and we'd come over after church to run through the new glorious church. That was 1957. It was towards the end of the construction part. I don't remember building the masonry walls or putting the roof on, but once the building envelope was complete, we'd come and run through, pick up the little knockouts that the electricians have. They're like pirate gold for 4-year-old boys. Little slugs.
My impression was watching this beautiful brick building go up and finally get a roof on it, and they're complete, while the parish hall was sitting over there up on blocks. And of course, it came down, settled down, and everything, the whole campus smoothed out to become a full-blown church. And we enjoyed it very much. To me, I was a convert at the time. And it was an inspiration to me to continue on my search in the church.
Yeah, I met Pat in 1957, and then in 58 we were married. And of all things, the marriage took place at the very time that this chapel was being moved from the Oak Street site to this site. So we were actually married up at St. Anne's in Oceanside by Mr. McConnell. He wanted to be called Mr. McConnell.
The new church in comparison seemed huge, seemed just immense. And I thought it was really cool. I know as a child that there was an upstairs. And I remember Mom being in the choir, and if I went upstairs with the choir, because sometimes I would be kind of there because they couldn't find anything else to do with me. The panicked looks on people's faces whenever you got near the railing of the choir rail, because it was they were so afraid that somebody was going to go through it. But it was really fun to stick your head out and look down.
One major problem we had was with when we became a parish, and we had the bishop chair up there, and the vestry had to decide whether to get a new chair or not. And there was not enough funds in the till to get a whole new chair, so we went for discussion. And there is a logo on the chair right now from the Diocese of Los Angeles. And after much discussion, we ended up getting another logo for San Diego Diocese. And if you're up there at the altar, there are 2 logos on the bishop's chair.
My husband was a big part of that. My husband, Bruce, and Father Lockerbie, and one other gentleman was active with them. They went up on the train to Los Angeles to pick out a rug for the big church, and just various little things like that. And we were kind of skeptical about the move because we were also contented in the old location, and but it turned out really well.
Like I said, it was a small church, but it was a very exciting time, very exciting. And Cliff was on the at that time, Bishop's Committee when this church was dedicated. And so we took part in all the festivities and everything, but it was a wonderful thing. And for a small group of people to raise this kind of money, it was wonderful to build the church.
That's a very good question. It began before the war, World War II, and stopped during the war because ingredients were not available. And I'm not quite sure when it resumed, but I remember as a young child watching my mother and the other women of the church, Dora Eade and Betty Groves, other people working on those fruitcake, right? Nan, Cliff Layton. It's a big, long tradition.
What does fruitcake have to do with Jesus? Well, it's part of our way of raising funds for our church, and I assume you're talking about fruit cakes rather than the individuals. So, and it's been a project that's been going on with St. Michael's for an extended period of time, so it's part of our tradition.
Well, there is the link of alcohol and the eternal presence of it.
And the weird combination of ingredients.
Yeah. I think those are pretty big things. They have the same lifespan. We were talking about fruitcake and Jesus.
Yes, as a matter of fact, for a couple of years, I actually came down and helped mix the thing. Went out to the farm where we bought many of the ingredients. Bates Nut Farm, went there with the group to purchase things, and worked in the kitchen a couple of years, helping mix things for the fruitcakes.
Yeah, Bates Nut Farm to get a lot of our supplies. That was we'd take our lunch out there, and Father Woodridge was with us. Used to bring a bottle of wine.
I did actually work one year in mixing up the ingredients. All the liquor that goes in it and getting the rags together and all that. But
Well, from the beginning when I came here, and my job, and another lady, she's not here anymore, we were the ones that were dipping the cakes into or fixing up the whiskey and wine and all that stuff we put it in. And so we left here, and because we'd been doing that all morning, I went to the bank, and I went in there, and everybody was looking at me like I smell so strong of alcohol at that time in the morning.
The fruitcakes were well preserved.
Yeah, right. We drank more than we ate. No, I'm just kidding.
when you think of fruitcake, you think, oh my goodness, you have all these. It has such a bad name, bad connotation to it. But St. Michael's famous fruitcakes are like no other. And I really know that because the first time I tried it, I thought, oh my gosh, another fruitcake. But it isn't. It is absolutely marvelous.
I happen to be one of those individuals who love fruitcake. And there were so many at the time said, why are we doing this? Fruitcake, ugh. Well, no, fruitcake, yay. And it was good.
They were good.
It's almost like we don't ever eat it, and it's almost a dare to eat it, but we always get one or two. Always.
Yeah.
Just because it's kind of a thing to have it as like a doorstop.
Oh, I love fruitcake. First thing is to take it home and unwrap it, put it out on the counter, and add a little fortuitous flavoring. And after a couple of months, it was ready to eat.
Oh, I've been involved in the consumption of the fruitcake. Sometimes I have to amend the fruitcake that that I acquire here. It sometimes has to have just a little bit of additional spice being added to it, in liquid form, but it's usually very good, and I love to consume the fruitcakes that are manufactured here.
It's all mixed with our love and everybody working together for one mean, for the church, for the betterment of the church.
I think a lot of goodwill and a lot of getting to know people is done in the kitchen. I think the kitchen's a very important part of the church, every church.
It was a joy. And it was a joy to eat.
Well, people are hungry.
You can come from back east, down south, go to this church here, and it will be the same as the church and the service in your hometown, wherever you are from. And that made such a difference for people. You felt at home.
Well, I like the solemnity of this service, and I enjoy going through motions that put your body into what you're doing, and I enjoy that.
I was just thinking the same thing. I think it's the traditions and getting me into the spirit of being with God.
The worship at St. Michael's, I have come to rely on the regularity of it and the familiarity of it. Yes, indeed.
My favorite part is, and I bring it up to all my friends, is like, I love the traditionalness of receiving communion. Going up to the altar, kneeling at the altar, receiving the wine. I mean, you don't go anywhere else, well, the places I've been to, and you don't see that, especially, born and raised Catholic and then doing it here. That's just really special to me, and I'm so pleased when I come here. It's just like, I don't know, it's nice.
For me, I personally like the traditional worship that we have here. It's something that I grew up with, but not quite as traditional as we are here, and I appreciate it more and more. It's just, there's a history there, and there's a great feeling.
I think just the richness of our tradition and understanding that tradition now, why we're doing what we're doing, and I just have much more of an appreciation.
What I appreciate about the worship is the focus on God. It seems simple and obvious, but we've been to many churches, so the palpable focus on God, to me, is what radiates from this place, and that's what holds, the gravity and weight. And for me, Holy Week grounds that, because I didn't have that growing up. We did get up on Sunday morning, get your Easter eggs, go to church. We didn't have Holy Week, so that entire week, and including Lent, but especially Holy Week, anchoring the year and really being that time of resonant focus on God, has really changed my relationship with God profoundly.
What I feel is important about the worship is just the tradition of it, and the repetition of it, because I find as the years go on that I'm here, and now I'm less focused on a wiggly child next to me, but it's allowing me to, the prayers that we say every week, I'm really starting to focus in on specific sentences and really think about those sentences, and try to take like one or two words or sentences with me during the week, and just constantly repeat them to myself and try to gain meaning. So that's what I really appreciate. I don't think you get a lot of tradition in a lot of churches these days.
Yeah.
Once I walk through the door in church, I know that the Lord is there.
It's everywhere. When you walk in and you see the light, and we genuflect, you can feel it, yeah.
We don't look at it as symbolism. It is a fact to us that He is here.
Well, we see Him present, of course, in all of our Eucharistic services, of course, but we have observed Christ present in His relationship with many of the individuals of our parish. We've seen Him heal, we've seen Him comfort.
I think one of the greatest things is seeing people heal after a terrible illness or surgery or whatever. If you can't believe when you see that, then it must be hard to believe.
Oh, in the people. Christ is present in the people.
You just see it in the people.
Yeah. And I think that's from day one, that you see the people in there volunteering to do different things, and that is Christ working through them. And whether they recognize it or anybody else, you see Christ in people because of that, because of their genuineness and the fact they want to do this, and they're not doing it for any glory for themselves. They're doing it because that's what God wants them to do.
I guess I've seen Christ present in the people's hearts that are here. So I think that I see so much of that here that I don't see in my daily life. You know, that it's a really nice contrast to know that you can see people that are truly living the Word of God here, and you can, you know, be a small part of their lives, or, you know, admire them from afar.
For me, the thing about St. Michael's is the presence of God. For me, the first impression of St. Michael's was, I remember the first time we came here, it felt like home, like the church I grew up in when I was a kid. Really down to earth, you could feel the presence of God. So yeah, there was that instant recognition almost. Almost felt like something remembered.
I learned years ago that church is more than coming to church on Sunday and sitting in the pew and getting to know the people, and it's just family.
Well, it's just, it's kind of the core, the center of our existence and our activity. There's not very much of anything that Daisy and I do, but what it is involved right here in the chapel, in the church, in the parish hall.
I come over to the chapel just about every Sunday and go in, close the door, and look around, and brings back those memories in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and so on. So, yeah, I have a lot of fond memories of this place.
We have a lot of fond memories of this place, I'll tell you.
Yeah, it's like the comfort of home for me. When you feel like you belong somewhere.
I just knew it. This is where I belonged and where I wanted to be.
This is a very special place, and there was a reason why Mrs. McGee gave it to the church.
I've been very pleased here over the years, and I don't anticipate going anywhere else.
Well, I'm very happy to be a member of the church, I know. I don't know, it means everything to me on Sundays.
I don't want to be anywhere else but here when I worship. I love it here.
And St. Michael's itself is my life. When you think about it.
All the different churches I've been at have never felt so welcome. And it's
Day
just
one.
It's become a family. It is our family.
Whether you're hurting or if something has happened to you, you're hurting, or whether you're happy, the people at St. Michael's are too. They care about you. If someone's hurt, we all hurt. And if someone's happy, we're all happy for them.
Overall, it's the warmth and the fellowship and the friendships that have been established for us throughout these years. And no matter where we are in our lives, it's our family that's here that is always willing to lend a hand to help and to reach out.
I know sounds probably very simple, but I truly think for me, just the real love from parishioners.
I just feel really blessed that we were guided here, made the choice to stay here, and that our kids have had that opportunity to grow up and grow in God's love and to see them move on into serving Christ as well. It's just very heartwarming to see that.
And I would welcome anybody that hasn't been to a traditional service in years or had never experienced a traditional service, and what we do to come and do that and feel the presence of Christ in church.
All the families, the kids growing up together, we're now godparents of children here. So I think those ties and really feeling like, you know, St. Michael's is our home. It's the center of, you know, obviously our home is Carlsbad and North County, but the center of that is St. Michael's.
It's a good Episcopal church, and I feel at home when I come here.
Well, I guess what keeps drawing me is the friendship and the feeling of being at home here.
I felt like I'd come home when I found this place.
It's a great place.
Yeah.
It's like you need to come and just see what you're missing, is what I would say.
Feels like home. Give it a try.
Every day you come here, it's worth remembering. I think that sums it up pretty well.
It's my home.